Dear friends, welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege of Parashas Vayigash. And the parasha contains what can only be described as one of the most dramatic and overwhelming stories in the entire Chumash. After all of the back and forth between Yosef and his brothers, the Shvatim, the brothers not understanding why was this unpredictable ruler so hyper-focused with the details of their family, incarcerating this one, letting go this one, needing to see Binyamin before releasing any more food. Finally, Yosef lifts the veil. And with two profound words, he forever changes the trajectory of the lives of his brothers and of his family. Ani Yosef, it's me. And with those two words, Yosef was saying so much more than, hey guys, I'm still alive. Yosef was saying, it's still me, it's Yosef. I love you, I care about you. I am still your brother. Let's put this family back together. Let's mend the ripped familial fabric. And then Yosef, of course, dispatches the brothers back to Canaan to bring back Yaakov and the family, because remember, regional famine is about to set in, or has already set in, and is only going to get worse. So Yosef says, come down to Egypt. I'll take care of you. I'll take care of your families. And Emirat Hashem, once again, we'll be together. So the Torah tells us that when the brothers came back and they told Yaakov about everything that happened, so the pasuk says, this is in Perek Memhei, pasuk Chavav, chapter 46, verse 26. V'agidu lo leimor, the brothers said to Yaakov, "O Yosef, Yosef is still alive, and he's a ruler in Egypt. Vayafag libo kiloha emin lohem." And Yaakov didn't believe them. He couldn't. Vayafag libo means almost like his heart overturned. He was unable to accept and unable to hear this information. So the pasuk goes on, the next pasuk. Vayidabra elav is called Divrei Yosef. So they told over to Yaakov all of the words of Yosef. Asher dibra aleim, that Yosef said to them. Vayaras ha'agalos, he saw the wagons that Yosef sent. Asher shalach Yosef laseis oso, that Yosef sent to transport them. Vatechi ruach Yaakov avihem. And Yaakov's spirit, Yaakov Avinu, came back to life. Remember, Yaakov Avinu was sitting Shiva for the last 22 years over the loss of Yosef. And Yaakov was once again, he was rebirthed, so to speak. He came back to life. And the Mefarshim are all intrigued by the same basic idea. If you look at the lashon of the pasuk makes it sound like that it was the wagons that somehow brought Yaakov back to life, right? Because the pasuk says, first, he didn't believe the brothers, right? He could not believe the story. Then they tell Yaakov all the words of Yosef. Vayar es ha'agalos asher shalach Yosef. He saw the wagons that Yosef sent. Vatechi ruach Yaakov avir. And Yaakov came back to life. So it sounds like somehow it wasn't the words which convinced Yaakov, but rather, again, it was the wagons. So what's the pshat? What was so important? What was so dramatic about the wagons? So Rashi HaKadosh quotes the famous Medrash, and Rashi says that Yosef said to his brothers, listen, I know that dad is going to have a little bit of time believing all of this. So tell him the story, tell him what happened. And if he still doesn't believe you, tell him the following. Amar lo, b'shar sheperashti mimenu hayisi misasek be'egla arufa. So tell father that when the last time we saw each other, more than 22 years ago, the last time we saw each other, we were learning the section of Egla Arufa. Now, Egla Arufa literally means the decapitated calf. We actually just did this in Daf Yomi, or doing it in Daf Yomi. Remember, again, the Torah discusses the idea that if you find someone murdered between two cities, and we don't know who the murderer was, so the halacha is that the elders of the closest city have to come out, and there's a whole process. To atone for this precious neshama, for this Jew who has been murdered. So Yosef says to the brothers, if Yaakov doesn't believe you that I'm still alive, so tell Yaakov, I'll give you the proof that Yosef is still alive. When Yosef left you more than 22 years ago, you were learning the section of Egla Arufa. Now again, Egla means a calf. Egla means a calf. So there's a little bit of a play on words. Vayares ha'agalos. So again, in this context, agalos means the wagons. But it's the same word. Egla, agala, vatechi ruach Yaakov avim. And when Yaakov heard that Yosef remembered what they were learning together more than 22 years ago, Yaakov Avinu comes back to life. It's almost as if, according to the Medrash, Yaakov Avinu, when he sees that his son has still held on to his spiritual identity, that it's still the same Yosef. It's not just that Yosef is physically alive, but Yosef is spiritually alive. So that ultimately, again, inspires Yaakov Avinu. Vatechi ruach Yaakov avim. But the Chassam Sofer says something absolutely beautiful. He says that Yosef knew his father better than anyone. And Yosef understood that without knowing firsthand, but he understood intuitively that his father had been sitting Shiva for the last 22 years. That his father had become a career or lifelong mourner. 22 years is a long time to mourn. And although whenever a person encounters a loss, the pain never goes away. Maybe it diminishes a little bit, But over time, hopefully, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu programmed us is the ability to take something, from the forefront of our consciousness and to push it back a little bit. The pain is always there. The absence is always there. The void is always there. But it's not necessarily occupying the front of my consciousness every moment of every day. But that wasn't so for Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov was in a constant state of pain, a constant state of loss, a constant state of mourning. And Yosef understood that it wasn't simply going to be difficult for his father to accept the news that he was still alive, but it was going to be difficult for Yaakov Avinu to pivot, to move into a different transition of life, because 22 years is a really long time to live a certain way. And Yosef understood that somehow he had to convince his father in this critical and pivotal moment to pivot, to shift, to be able to look at life and to live life differently. And says the Chassam Sofer something absolutely amazing. Chassam Sofer says that Yosef sent Agalos, and he told his brother, tell dad that I'm sending him Agalos. The Chassam Sofer says, Agala is also the same word as eagle, as a circle. Igul, a circle. The Chassam Sofer says something so incredible. Sometimes in life, we get stuck in a repetitive loop. We just get stuck. I'm like the hamster on the hamster wheel. I just get stuck. It's the same thing, right? I get stuck in certain personality traits. I get stuck in certain lifestyles. I get stuck in certain bad decisions. And it's an eagle. It's just a circuit. It's a circle that doesn't end. And if you go ahead and you live your life in an eagle, so says Chassam Sofer, you know what happens? Arufa. It's like being almost like personalistically decapitated. Right? Because remember, Yosef says to the brothers, tell dad that we were learning Egla Arufa, play on words. Egla, father's stuck in a circle. He's stuck in a circuit of mourning. And when you get stuck in the same circle of life, Arufa, it's decapitating. A decapitated person can't accomplish all that much. Without your head, you're not going anywhere but staying in place. Yosef HaTzadik was dispatching a veiled message to his father. Dad, the last thing we learned together was Egla Arufa. And I'm now, again, Egla Arufa, the halacha, when somebody gets murdered. But Dad, I'm so scared. Abba, I'm so scared that you're living a life of Egla Arufa. That you're stuck on the hamster wheel. That you're stuck in the same circuit, the same circle of mourning. And that because of your refusal to move forward, you've decapitated yourself. And you're stuck in place. But Father, I need you to do something brave and heroic. And I need you to go ahead and be willing to live differently. I need you to get off the hamster wheel. I need you to stop going around in circles. I need you to find your head. And I need you to go ahead and be willing to live and to lead a different kind of life. And amazingly enough, says Chassam Sofer, Yaakov Avinu heard this nuanced and embedded message. See, no one else knew what was going on. As far as the brothers knew, they were just talking about agalos, wagons. Or as far as the brothers knew, they were just telling Yaakov Avinu about Egla Arufa. It was like a spiritual check. Hey, Dad, that's what we were learning 22 years ago. But Yaakov heard it. Yaakov knew what his son was telling him. Father, don't get stuck in an ongoing cycle of negative behavior. Don't get stuck in an ongoing cycle of mourning for that which has been, because if you do that, you'll decapitate any possibility of moving forward. But if you're willing to pivot, if you're willing to live differently, there's no telling what we could do together. And Yaakov Avinu internalizes this message. And how does the pasuk end? Vatechi ruach Yaakov Avihem. It doesn't say Yaakov Avinu believed them. It doesn't say Yaakov Avinu was besimcha. It says his spirit came back to being. Vatechi, his spirit came back to life. Because then Yaakov Avinu realized, I don't have to be an Egla Arufa. I don't have to decapitate myself by simply getting stuck in the same cycles, circles, and circuits of behavior. But I could do something different. I could live different. His spirit came back to life. This was the message that Yosef HaTzadik sent to his grieving father. And dear friends, what a profound and overwhelming message for us as well. We all get stuck on our hamster wheels, right? For some of us, the hamster wheel is in negative relationships that just keep on perpetuating the toxicity. Or sometimes it's negative behavior traits, right? I know I have flaws. It's one thing to know you have flaws and then just to resign yourself to the fact that you have flaws. Sometimes we just resign ourselves. We just keep going in the same loop, the same circle, just living life over and over. And sometimes, again, there are other just life decisions that I've made that, although they don't have to be permanent, essentially I resign myself to their inherent permanency, thereby creating a permanence for these negative life decisions. And Yosef HaTzadik teaches us it doesn't have to be that way. Sounds strange, but don't live a life of Egla Arufa. Don't decapitate yourself from further growth by getting stuck on the hamster wheel of life and just self-perpetuating the same decisions, the same lifestyles, the same toxicity, the same negative relationships over and over and over. Pivot. Life could be different. You could get off the hamster wheel of negativity. You could choose to live differently. And in that moment, when you realize, even before I do anything, but in that moment when I realize that life can be different, in that moment when I realize that I can get off the hamster wheel, that I can go ahead and stop going around in circles, that I do not have to live a life of personalistic decapitation. Strong words, I know, but when I realize all of that, Vatechi, insert your name here, Ruach Aviem, Vatechi Ruach Yaakov Aviem. Your spirit comes back, your joie de vie comes back, your optimism comes back, your vision comes back, because I realize I don't have to spend life on the same wheel. You know, dear friends, we come off the Yom Tov of Chanukah, and we still feel that glow. You know, Chanukah, I don't know if Chanukah is one of my favorite Yom Tovim. All the Yom Tovim are my favorite Yom Tovim. But Chanukah is my favorite Chanukah, my favorite Chanukah Yom Tov. And what I love about it so much is that each and every day, there's just like an infusion. Each and every day, there's additional tangible light, and we come off it. And sometimes, like, you come to Zos Chanukah, to the last day, I hit that apex, and then I'm like, where do I go from here? And I think this is the answer. Where do I go from here? I have to identify my hamster wheels. I have to identify my circles. I have to identify my circuits. What are the things that I'm engaging in self-perpetuating negative behavior? How am I engaging in the unfortunate process of personalistic decapitation? And to decide myself, no more. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm stopping. I'm getting off the hamster wheel of negative, cyclical, and circular behavior. I don't want it anymore. And maybe there's 5 hamster wheels that I'm on. Okay, I can't get off all of them at the same time. But I'm going to decide today, as I come out of Chanukah, going into Parshas Vayigash, I want some of that. I want some of that Vatechi Ruach Yaakov Aviem. I want to come back to life. I want to live the life I really want to live. I want to be the person I know I'm capable of being. But in order to do that, I have to break the negative circles. I have to disrupt the negative circuits. I have to stop engaging in the negative cyclical behavior. And I can. Yaakov Avinu had the courage to do it and was zochet to be reunited with his family and rebuild his family and live out his final years in a state of familial achdus. If Yaakov Avinu could do it, that means we, his children, Bnei Yisrael, Bnei Yaakov, we, his children, have the koach to do the same. Wishing everyone a good Erev Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.